Your phone buzzes. You look down. Family dinner, Sunday 4 p.m., sitting right there on your calendar. And something in your chest does the opposite of lift. Not dread exactly, something quieter. A slow, specific kind of tired. You love these people. At least you think you do. But the idea of sitting in that house, at that table, with those dynamics for 3 hours, something in your body is already bracing. Already calculating exit windows. Already rehearsing answers to questions you haven't been asked yet. And the worst part? You feel guilty about it. Because you're supposed to want this. Family is supposed to feel like home. Here's what nobody tells you about the people who struggle most at family gatherings. It's not that they're antisocial. It's not that they don't love their family. It's that their nervous system has a very long memory. And that memory has opinions about Sunday dinner. Here's what nobody tells you about dreading family gatherings. It's not immaturity. It's not ingratitude. And it is absolutely not a flaw in your character. It's data. Your nervous system has been collecting information about these people, this environment, and what it costs you to be in it for decades. The dread isn't irrational. It's a very rational response to a very specific set of learned experiences. That's not avoidance. That's pattern recognition. And your brain is better at it than you give it credit for. Picture this. You're 12 years old, Thanksgiving, the table is full, the food smells incredible, and within 11 minutes, someone has said something that makes the entire room go quiet in that specific, suffocating way. You learned something that day. Maybe you learned that love and tension live in the same room. Maybe you learned that your job was to keep things light, to laugh when nothing was funny, to be the one who made it okay. Maybe you learned to disappear a little, to eat quietly and wait for it to be over. Psychologist Murray Bowen, who developed what's now called family systems theory, found that every family operates like a hidden emotional machine. Each person gets assigned a role, the responsible one, the difficult one, the golden child, the peacemaker, often before they're old enough to have any say in it. And those roles don't update just because you did. But here's what that clinical framework doesn't fully capture. It's not just a role. It's a whole nervous system state. When you walk back into that house at 28, at 35, at 43, your body doesn't just remember the role. It goes back into the physiological state that role required. The hypervigilance, the monitoring, the subtle shrinking, the preemptive management of everyone else's emotions. Your brain has neural pathways associated with that kitchen, that dining table, that specific tone of voice. And those pathways were carved when your brain was still forming. They run deep. Which means that calendar notification doesn't just remind you of an event. It activates an entire internal weather system that your adult self has to manage while also passing the sweet potatoes. Loop 1. The role regression. Here's something specific you might recognize. You walk through that front door as a fully functioning adult. Your own job, your own lease, your own hard-earned opinions. And within about 20 minutes, something shifts. You're quieter than you are anywhere else. Or louder in a way that doesn't feel quite like you. You're agreeing with things you'd push back on anywhere else. You're shrinking or performing or both at once, and you can't quite explain why. Psychologists call this regression, the phenomenon where familiar relational environments temporarily pull us back into earlier versions of ourselves. The neural pathways formed in childhood are so deeply embedded that returning to the physical space that trained them can literally reactivate old behavioral patterns. This isn't weakness. This isn't being controlled. This is just how human brains work in environments with a long relational history. The office you've worked in for 3 years has some emotional charge. The house you grew up in for 18 has a charge that makes it look like a match next to a bonfire. And here's the paradox. You can be the most grounded, self-aware person in every other context of your life, genuinely. Therapist approved, meditation practiced, emotionally regulated. and still spend 40 minutes at Christmas feeling 14, not because you haven't grown, because the environment hasn't. Loop 2, the emotional labor nobody names. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Most people who dread family gatherings aren't just managing their own experience, they're managing everyone else's. You know who you are. You're the one who smooths things over before they escalate, the one who changes the subject at exactly the right moment, the one who laughs a little too enthusiastically at a joke that landed wrong just to keep the air breathable, the one who clocks everyone's mood the second you walk in, not because you want to, but because you learned a long time ago that being the first one to notice meant you had a chance to prevent something. That's emotional labor, and it runs on real cognitive fuel. Research from the University of Michigan found that suppressing authentic emotions in social situations, what psychologists call surface acting, significantly increases mental fatigue and what they call emotional exhaustion. You're not just being present at a gathering, you're running a continuous, invisible background process that monitors, adjusts, preempts, and repairs. That's why you leave family gatherings more tired than you arrived. Not because of the food or the drive, because you worked the entire time. You just weren't paid for it and no one noticed you did it. Loop 3, the comparison architecture. And then there's the thing everyone feels but almost nobody names out loud. Every family gathering is a performance review you didn't apply for. How's work going? Are you seeing anyone? You look tired. Have you thought about going back to school? Each question arrives wrapped in warmth but lands like an audit. Social psychologist Leon Festinger's research on social comparison theory showed that humans instinctively measure themselves against the people closest to them, and family provides the most loaded comparison pool imaginable. These aren't strangers. These are the people who watched you fail your driving test, who know about the thing that happened in 2014, who remember exactly who you were before you became who you are now. And when you feel like you're coming up short, even slightly, even in one area, your brain processes that as genuine threat. The same neural regions activated by physical pain light up when we feel socially diminished. Your cousin's new house isn't just a house, it's a data point your brain is measuring itself against, whether you asked it to or not. This isn't pettiness, this is biology. And the fact that it happens inside your closest relationships makes it harder to name, not easier. Loop 4, the boundary collapse. Here's what rarely gets said. You've probably spent real time and real effort building a life that fits you. Boundaries around your time, your energy, your privacy, things you've said no to, space you've protected. And then you walk into a family gathering, and that entire architecture quietly dissolves. Questions that would feel invasive from a colleague feel somehow mandatory from a parent. Opinions about your choices that you'd never tolerate from a friend get absorbed in near silence because the alternative is a scene. Physical space, emotional space, even the pace of your own day. Suddenly none of it belongs to you in the same way. The implicit family expectation that the group's needs, questions, and comfort override the individual's right to privacy or limits. It's not always malicious, it's often love, expressed through the wrong instrument. But your nervous system doesn't distinguish between well-meaning and invasive. It just registers. Something is being taken that I didn't offer. And that registration triggers a stress response that compounds with every, so when are you two having kids? Until by dessert, you're fantasizing about a single occupancy cabin with no cell reception. But here's what rarely gets acknowledged. Underneath the dread, there's a grief, not for the gathering, for what the gathering was supposed to be. You grieve the version of family that was promised. The one in the warm-lit photographs, the one other people seem to casually have, the version where the table felt like safety instead of performance, where you could walk through the door and actually exhale. You grieve the version of yourself that gets to be easy in those rooms. That doesn't have to strategize or manage or brace. The self that can say, I'm tired without it becoming a conversation. that can disagree without the room changing temperature, and maybe most quietly, you grieve the fact that loving someone and finding them hard to be around are not opposites. That you can miss people and also need to leave early. That family can be both the most important thing in your life and the thing that costs you the most. How do you explain to someone that you love your family and also that the drive home afterward feels like breathing again? This grief doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest about something most people only admit in their cars, alone, on the way home from Sunday dinner. So the next time your chest tightens at a calendar notification, don't shame yourself for it. Listen to it. Your nervous system isn't broken, it's informed. Every piece of data it collected about that room, those dynamics, what it costs you to be in it, that information is real. And honoring it isn't avoidance, it's self-knowledge. You are allowed to love your family from a distance that doesn't injure you. You are allowed to show up for shorter windows, with cleaner exits, with less performance and more honesty. You are allowed to decide that one coffee with your favorite cousin does more for your relationships than 3 hours of whole family theater. You didn't choose the role you were assigned. You didn't design the emotional architecture of the house you grew up in. You didn't write the script that gets handed out at the door. But you're not 14 anymore. You get to decide what you walk back into. And you get to decide how much of yourself you leave there. Some people mistake walls for coldness. They're not. Sometimes a wall is just a door you haven't opened on your terms yet. You don't owe anyone the version of you that disappears in that room. The version that laughs when nothing's funny and stays quiet when you have something to say and drives home wondering where you went. That version has done enough. You can retire them now. If this hit home for you, please subscribe.